Hey, hi Facebook, hi LinkedIn, hi YouTube, hi everywhere else we've hit the button to go live on today. It's Thursday, it's 12 o'clock, and so we're here to just hang out and have a bit of a chat on the Green Umbrella Live Lunch. I'm actually quite excited today, not just because it's Thursday and I get a bit giddy halfway through a Thursday most weeks, but also because we've got Glenn Southam joining us today as our special guest. So I was about to go into this long introduction then, but actually, Glenn, why don't you introduce yourself? Because there's about a million things that I can tell people about you, all of which are nice.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. Firstly, thanks for having me on the show. So long time watcher and listener, first time appearer. But yeah, from my background, I'm kind of a little bit of a recruitment dinosaur, not in terms of my views and everything, but been around for God knows how long in the recruitment industry now. And the dog's obviously aware of me as well there. But I work,
he's a big fan. He's a big fan.
So I've worked in marketing. I have done for 15, 16 years, worked in various recruitment companies, international ones, big ones, small ones, every shape and size. And then over the past 2.5 years, I've just been by myself, working as a consultant and an advisor. And across that time, it's evolved into me doing the marketing stuff. Started a podcast, which Christina and Amanda have both appeared on. Amanda most recently a couple of weeks ago. A community evolved out of that by chance more than anything else. Again, that both Christina and Amanda are part of. And yeah, it feels like I've been blagging the past 2.5 years, but it seems to have worked out okay in that respect, to be honest.
Do you know, you always make comments like that, and you're you use that phrase kind of was it jack of all trades, master of none?
Yeah.
But there's not much you don't know when it comes to recruitment marketing.
I think that's I'm not an expert in anything like that, but I have always taken that approach of always wanting to give something a go before asking somebody else to do it, which means that I screw up quite a lot. And I think it's just me being nosy a lot of the time. It's like I want to know what's going on. I'm nosy like that all with everything. God knows how many times I've fallen into Wikipedia wormholes if I notice something that I don't know about it, and an hour's gone and just reading topic after topic. But yeah, that's why I am.
I prefer curious rather than nosy.
I'll take that.
Yeah,
Killed
you're curious.
Killed the cat though, didn't it? Killed the cat. Yeah.
So just before we went live, so Mark we've sort of chatted about branding and that kind of thing, and sometimes you come across clients that are they're not quite connected up with the brand, or they are looking at, you've got people within a business that are not marketers, and they will come to us as an agency or you as an internal marketing support, and they come out with the funniest lines. And within the Lonely Marketers community, we share stories sometimes, don't we, about the crazy stuff that gets said to us. Yeah. And I have to share a little story, and I'm sure you'll have stories of your own. But a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to Amanda about a presentation, and her head just went sideways at me, and she went, "Christina, are you asking me to jazz it up?"
Classic phrase.
Little bit of me died at that point.
You just jazz it up a bit.
But you must have heard some dingers over the years, and those sort of awkward moments where you're like, "This is brand." And I know, Mark, you get really frustrated sometimes, don't you?
It's one of those things, isn't it? You just want to do the best for people as well, though. That's what and you've got to feel passionate about it, and it's like being a brand guardian for our clients as well. So when you see something, you think, "Oh no, please don't do that." That's that sinking feeling inside. And as we've said, sometimes you have to do it, unfortunately, if they insist. But
yeah, I think I certainly early in my career, I probably still am a little bit of that kind of that people pleaser type thing. And you just do stuff. I think a lot of it comes that when it comes to like branding and marketing, like from a visual point of view, obviously we live in kind of a subjective world, don't we? Everyone can have an opinion on something, how they look and feel, but equally everyone thinks they're a marketer as well. They think they understand brand and they understand marketing, and the reality is they don't. I think a lot of the cases, but it's very hard sometimes to explain that long-term stuff because there's needs, as we all know, that things turn around and bits and pieces like that. So yeah.
I was asked just yesterday if I could put some branding magic on something.
Yeah.
Branding magic.
Yeah,
I want some of that.
That sounds like ice magic. Going old school.
Is it something what?
Ice magic.
Ice. Oh, okay.
It's always seems to. I think from a marketing point of view, it's always the smallest things that seem to be the most important things for others within marketing. I know you all get involved in it, but certainly throughout my career, probably the things that people kick off about the most over my career have been business cards. Either they need them straight away because they're the most important tool that they've got in their armory, or they're worried about something being misaligned, or a little gap or a colour's off. Always, I've got no doubt that that's been the thing that people have moaned to me about the most over my career. I reckon business cards.
They seem like very sensible people, Glenn.
Do you know what? They probably even moan about them now. I've had people asking for me for business cards or asking like people I work with for business cards over the past 6 months. I'm like, what? How? Why? What's the purpose of a business card now?
Well,
how many business cards have you printed? Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah,
we have actually done quite a few in the recent weeks, to be fair. And in fact, the last order that just came in before I come online was a business card order.
There you go.
So there are. I think it depends on the sector, but perhaps not recruitment at the minute. But that was they're a manufacturing company, so they're probably still out and about there, to be honest. So
I think they retain even from a practical level, they probably retain an element of people just like that physical, the prestige and the emotional connection that having a business card, what that means to someone. I think a lot of the time as well.
I think once networking comes back in, they become a little bit more back in, but yeah, I get what you mean at the minute.
Throwing them at each other from 2 meters away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to have that in there. But yeah, no, at the minute, I suppose, yeah, if people are not out and about, they're not particularly useful, really. But yeah, if people are, getting back out there, and hopefully will be next year, then there's still a place for the humble business card.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you think people miss opportunities with them though as well sometimes? Like we've kind of, I don't think we see it so often now, do we? Where you've got a business card where they just haven't used the back of the card at all, or not used it in a smart way, or and I do remember, this is going back a few years now, Mark. It's a brand that we work with that are internationally based, and I think it was some people out in Asia, and it was like all the letters after their names went over a couple of lines.
Yeah. I think I know what you mean, but yeah, that kind of thing again, where people think that's really important to have every qualification they've got in the world on a business card. Yeah. No, maybe just keep it to the ones that are important. Or if you really want, letters past your name.
I saw one, Mark, the other day. You might think it's pants, but I thought it was quite cool. So it was a plain business card, and then in the middle it had just their email address. But then it had divided the email address into different sections. So obviously above their name, they had sort of like I don't know what you call it, like a bracket type thing. And then above that, it said me. And then under the @ bit, it had another bracket underneath that, and it said social media accounts. And then it had like a bracket over the whole email address, and it said email address. I just thought it was quite clever how they'd divided it, and they'd had it was really simple, but I thought it was quite effective. Although like I said, you might think it's pants.
Anything that you can do to make it different.
Yeah, so I thought it was quite different. And it was clever how they'd well, first of all, managed to get all of their social media handles exactly the same. And secondly, how they divided it all up.
Yeah, surely Corona's going to see I think you spoke about it not long ago, or wrote about it, Christina. There's going to be a rise of QR codes appearing on business cards, isn't there? Where now people are used to scanning and doing everything now.
Yeah. I think there's so much opportunity, and I think people are more open to it as technology as well. Yeah. So in fact, someone else we're talking to at the minute, they do a lot of stuff with sort of 3D graphics, that kind of stuff. And what's it called, Mark? I was trying to explain it to you the other day and you were like, yeah, I know. And I couldn't think of the word.
Sort of like holograms, isn't it?
Holograms, yeah, there you go. See?
Yeah. Like Star Wars type stuff.
That's but you can, I mean, we'd had a conversation ages ago about, you know, doing things like Rec Expo and like what could we do with a giraffe that might be quite cool just to do something a bit different. Obviously it was all very like, you know, we didn't do it at the time. It was, you know, just one of those sort of, you know, drunken conversations where you have really good creative ideas that cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. But it's interesting at this point now when you're like everywhere you go, there's QR codes. So whether it is, you know, just because you want to order at Nando's or because you've gone somewhere and it's your track and trace or whatever it is, I think that resurgence is going to happen and people are going to just think smarter about it.
Yeah, and technology is better. I remember when the first round of QR codes, like on your phone, you had to download like a QR code reader. Now you just open up your camera and it automatically detects it, doesn't it? So there's no effort. It's, you know, taking all the friction out of it.
Absolutely.
I think the LinkedIn sort of thing, being able to connect to people straight away on LinkedIn, it's probably a good thing to do as well if you are going to use that on business cards. I know you've got the double does the thing work on the app where you can connect to people by Bluetooth type thing?
Nearby. Who's nearby?
Yeah. But things like the QR codes, I've started, I don't use it all the time because it depends on what I'm doing, but I've started like putting the QR code like on my final slide. So it's not just connect with me on LinkedIn. It's actually like, here's the photo, go and do it. Because if we'd have been face to face at an event, I'd have been using the find nearby thing at that point when everyone's in the room together. But I'm not seeing many people use that QR code in their presentations at this point. But it's interesting when you're presenting a webinar or something and sort of saying to people, okay, well, you know, put your questions in, and you know, whilst you're typing your questions in, the QR code is on screen, just take a photo, connect with me, and you start seeing them ping in on your phone. It's like people do actually do it.
Well, even now, you know, you could do it virtually, can't you, on Zoom calls, on these types of calls where you usually have your logo if you're doing a webinar. You know, there's no reason why that can't be done now.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what's going on today. We're getting quite a bit of feedback. So Jane, I'm not doing it on purpose. I think it's you or me.
Oh, Jane's muted.
What'd you say?
I wondered why you kept muting me. Sorry.
It would have been really funny if I just muted her again at that point. Cool. So I obviously, because I'm like a podcast addict right now, could everyone else hear it as well?
I just heard it then. Yeah.
There's nothing worse than hearing your own voice.
I find it so off-putting when you're sort of speaking and then you can hear your own voice back to you. It's so off-putting.
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare.
I hate that.
Glenn, do you listen to your own podcast?
I've never listened to an episode of the 68 that I've recorded. Obviously, I listen to little bits when I go in and do like the editing or anything like that, but I've never downloaded or subscribed one on any of the things at all, ever.
Wow.
No.
I would be the opposite, I think.
Editing.
I think I would have to listen, even when I record sort of like WhatsApp voice notes and things, I have to listen to it back because I forget what I've said. And I think if I said something really silly, I then need to apologise for what I've said. So I have to listen to it just to like security blanket.
Yeah.
I can't bear to listen to it. It's like as soon as like just the intro, I'm like, oh, why did I say that like that? Or like just like completely judging how I sound straight away. It's just
your voice doesn't sound like what it is in your head, is it? Because that isn't how people hear you. It's a completely different voice to what you hear when you speak it. I think that.
Do you know? It's not even that bit. It's the intelligence thing. I'm just like, oh my, did I really say that? Like again, you know, in the green room, we were talking about some of the stuff I've said on, you know, in the last few weeks. It's like I just put my foot in it all of the time. I'm permanently forming my sentences in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's not the formulation of the sentence that's the problem. It was the content.
It wasn't the grammar.
You're only saying that, Mark, because it was payday yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the podcast, Glenn, you're, I mean, smashing it really, aren't you? With that, that's like, just
it's taken a little bit of a. It took a little bit of a backseat during lockdown version 1, and I flipped up to do a few webinars and things. But I think, you know, for the podcast now, you know, you do see them everywhere. You see a lot of different businesses doing them. My approach now is to do kind of a little bit of a Netflix type style, rather than commit to weekly podcasts. Get 5 or 6 people. Recorded, done and dusted, and release it as a series. Because when I was doing them weekly, I just, you know, it's pressure. You know, it's just non-stop. It's like pressure to get a guest, and maybe taking on, you know, or listening to people that you're like, oh, not too sure about. Thankfully, it's never turned out like that. But that is what you risk when you're just chasing that consistency sometimes. But yeah, it started off, you know, completely selfish reasons for me. When I, you know, what was it, April last year, I think I started doing it. It was like I was having a lot of these conversations all of the time, like chatting with peers in the industry. I just thought, oh, why don't I just start recording it? See, you know, with mates a lot of the time. Initially, people I knew, so it was quite comfortable. Yeah, and it did. It just snowballed, but it's been great. You know, I speak about the lonely marketers and everything more than I do about the business, the stuff that, you know, the clients that I have and TwoEnds. I haven't put a post on the TwoEnds LinkedIn company page for, I don't know, a year potentially, but it just kind of shows that the audience is potentially the same on the lonely marketers, and it's not as pushy potentially. And I'm not a pushy salesperson in that respect anyway. So just that alignment goes quite a long way, regardless, I think. And I enjoy doing it. You know, I think I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it, because, you know, what's the point in a lot of cases. So yeah, I love doing it. I love the conversations. I love finding out what you know, the struggles that other people have gone through, how they've overcome them, you know, what they enjoy doing, what they don't. It's just even more so probably now. I think people are a lot more willing to open up and be vulnerable and show their vulnerable side, which is great content if people are willing to do it. I think at the moment as well, you know, people want to know human stories. They want to know that they're not the only ones, and you'll be amazed at how, you know, many of those comments I get either via guests or myself are saying, thanks for that, Glenn. You know, it's a little bit of reassurance or something like that. I'm glad I'm not the only one. So yeah, it's kind of it's served its purpose, but it certainly hasn't come to an end anytime soon.
Yeah, it's quite interesting when you're talking to people, finding out, like, again, who's actually been listening.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be surprised, because you're creating the content so that people can consume it, and you know, and you can give them those little, you know, that you know, just share those thoughts and opinions and whatever with them. But yeah, when people actually come back and talk to you about something you've said, you're like, oh, hold on a minute.
Yeah. It's
you mean
really,
you actually listened or read that thing I wrote?
yeah, the one thing as marketers, you know, one of the really frustrating things with podcasts is that lack of insight that you get from like audiences. You know, you can get that top level of how many people have subscribed and listened, but it's very well, it's impossible to find individuals. Like if you do an email campaign, you can see who's read stuff or opened stuff. With podcasts, you are relying on those people to reach out to you and have a conversation, which makes it quite nice, actually. That kind of that uncertainty, it makes it quite a nice surprise when people do comment about it.
Yeah. So Amanda, I think you wanted to talk about 20 questions, didn't you?
Yeah, although I've talking about podcasts, I know you probably want to move it along. I was just curious. Can I change tack and say what makes a good podcast guest versus what makes a bad podcast guest? You know, I'm not asking you to kind of name and shame who's been awesome, who's been
yeah, present company excluded. Yeah,
but if you're, so if someone is thinking, right, this is, I've got quite a niche for my business. I'm thinking of starting a podcast. What do they need to look for, or what do they need to maybe avoid in terms of what makes a good podcast guest? Or stay clear.
Yeah, I think the accountability sometimes comes on the host as much as the guest. I think the host has such an important role to plan the show as much as possible in terms of structure and making sure the guest kind of knows what's coming without being scripted. You know, when we spoke, Christina and Amanda before our show, you were quite forward in terms of what you wanted to speak about, which was great, and it allows you to frame it. I think you want to find someone with some personality, obviously, someone who's already out there and they can talk. You see they're active on LinkedIn and they're willing to have an opinion and things like that. So, all my guests are hugely diverse, but they've all had a story to tell, and it's tell a story. The topic might be the same, but the story being told is in a different way. But it does come down to planning. I think anyone who you identify, if you like, should be a good guest. But I think it comes on the host as much. I've had multiple kind of emails from like PR people who've said, "Oh, hi Glenn, I represent this person. Can I put them on your show?" And it's a little bit like, no, not really. I don't know them well enough. So I think you like any take it down to the principles of marketing. It's you're identifying your target audience. Who do you want on your guest as a guest, and who do you want to listen to it? What stories? And I think you have the responsibility to go out there, and then naturally people will come to you. Like Amanda, the way you came on the show, for example, was I put it out in the newsletter that I wanted to do guests, but I know that pretty much every single person who reads the newsletter is a target audience of recruitment, marketing, and stuff like that. So it's going to be relevant. So yeah, I don't think there's any key criteria in anything. I think it comes down to, I'd say, regardless of what you're trying to do, whether it's podcast or anything else, is like, who's your audience? Who do you want to listen to it? And you create the content to put in there, and that can mean a person to a certain degree. Yeah.
I think, like you say, a lot of it's reliant on the host. And, I sort of volunteered and said, well, I'll throw my hat into the ring to come on the podcast. But was a bit nervous. It's the first podcast I've done. I've done presenting and everything for Green Umbrella. And Christina, we get that from your podcast as well, is it really is just like a conversation. It felt very natural, just kind of a chat. And I did listen to some of it back, and I was like, oh yeah, he really hasn't edited. Like, that's what I said. So,
I've only ever had to edit like sometimes if there's like a gap, I'll reduce, where I might have like thrown in a curveball and the answer might be good, but they're like like that. But I've only had to edit one properly at the request of the host when they completely slagged off someone, a CEO of someone, and then after the show realised it was a CEO of one of their top 5 clients who had brought in the best part of $500,000 a year. And,
oh dear.
Yeah, and I'm not an editor. I'm okay at cutting stuff, but yeah, that's the only time I've done it, and for that exact reason, I think that unedited version's quite good. I think, you know, over 60 odd episodes or whatever it is, you know how to either carry on a conversation or cut a conversation or go another way. I think that comes with experience. I've never done anything like that in terms of interviewing or anything. You know, it's like anything, kind of wing it to a certain description, but there's some key elements that you always retain just to create that structure around it, so it's not completely a free-for-all.
Yeah. So Paul's just put into the comments, good job it wasn't live. So a lot of people in that, they're producing podcasts, but they are, and you know, and we do it with this, although we don't massively promote the Social Snippet show, which is the Green Umbrella podcast, but we will take the audio from this and that gets uploaded. We market this, we don't market the podcast itself. But then a lot of people are kind of going that way. Now, the episodes I've done myself, I kind of feel like, no, I just want that to be for the podcasters to listen to. And I've got all the video recordings, so you know, and I am going to do some like snippets and release those. But you know, those snippets will appear on YouTube like months and months after the episode's been available. You know, and what's your opinion on that kind of approach? Because it is a little bit like putting the same content everywhere, which, you know, traditionally as digital marketers, we wouldn't support.
No, the same content everywhere. I don't necessarily. I see it as a channel, and all the feedback that I got was that people were listening to the podcast, you know, on the drives to work, on the trains to work back in the day, and now it's more like on their dog walks and in the morning and things. I get the purposes for promoting it and repurposing it. So it's purely time that I don't do it now. But when I first started, I'd take like a 30-second clip to promote the episode, like just but again, it was just a sound thing that would go on Insta or LinkedIn. But that would be it. It would be a 30-second clip to just promote the audio version. And then when I got a little bit braver and thought, I need more work for myself. When I went and did podcasts in person, I record the episode, and then I put my iPhone on a tripod and sit down with my guest and say, that was a good episode. What did we talk about? Why should people listen? And we do like an intro round there, but it was never kind of, you know, let's put it on YouTube, let's put it here, let's put it left, right, and center, which, you know, I don't know, maybe I would have got more views and stuff like that on YouTube, but I don't know. I'm thinking, that being said, I'm thinking now potentially, do I like transcribe, not like word for word transcribe stuff, but can I make 200, 300 word kind of like blogs and things and for each episode? But now it's at like 67 episodes. I think I might have to get you guys to do it for me, or something like that, just to build out. But a lot of that's because the podcast, if you like, and the way it's evolved from a podcast into more of the community side on the Lonely Marketers and stuff that I'm maybe thinking that can be built out there. It's just snowballed into a bigger thing there. But you know, that it's something to consider. But certainly, you know, it's like anything, isn't it? It's so obvious when you see a post of any kind and you see it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, all going at exactly the same time, and you just because they've used social scheduling tool and ticked everything, and we all know that all the audiences are different, and the way you communicate on all these channels are completely different as well.
Yeah. Cool. So it's really funny with people and podcasts. They're either really, really into it and they like listen to like 10 different podcasts or more, or they're just not podcast people at all.
I'm not a podcast person.
Are you not?
No. I listen. I listen to
what?
I'm not. I listen to maybe a couple of football podcasts a week. That's it.
Because you're a runner, aren't you? So what do you listen to when you're out running?
Nothing. I can't listen to music or anything when I run. No.
You're just in the zone.
Yeah. Just I use it as pure just thinking time really to myself.
Okay.
Really, no distractions. Yeah.
Wow. Podcast me. Don't listen to them.
Yeah.
That surprises me. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so one of the themes that I think is going to be really, really strong, and I am going to sit down this weekend without fail and write my blog about what I think's coming next in 2021 marketing trends wise.
You've said it now live. You've committed.
I know. But to be fair, I can't keep myself accountable to you lot. So, the rest of Facebook have got no chance really, have they? But the whole getting personal, making yourself vulnerable, I think that there is so much value in that. And, with Glenn and Amanda as well, we're part of the Recruiting Brain Food community, and Lee has done this 20 question series, which we've both done. And I found it excruciating, absolutely excruciating doing it. And mine was posted and I got loads of lovely messages from people, loads of likes and that kind of stuff. And I felt really, really positive and like, oh, people like me. And then I think like 2 weeks later, Glenn's was published and his just like made mine look like nothing.
Glenn's broke the internet.
Yeah. I was like, excuse me?
Why do you think it's so powerful? So I guess for people who don't know, Recruiting Brave Foods is a community of recruiters, internal and external. Hungry's done a great job of building this community, and he asked these 20 questions to get to know you better. And it's not some of the conversations we've had offline are about being a bit vulnerable and showing the real you versus doing a kind of X Factor story. Do you know what I mean? Telling a story just I'm trying to phrase it in a way that's quite delicate.
No,
there is a fine line.
It's not a sub story type
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
But the 20 questions, both Glenn, yours had a fantastic response, and Christina, so I know yours did too. Why do you think it's so powerful?
I think it's relatable, isn't it? I think where you say is when you see kind of like sob stories, if you like, you feel like in a lot of cases they're forced. Like you can tell that it's forced to a point of trying to get people to be more emotional than they need to be, and you don't need to be like that. It is literally just tell the truth and be honest, which is a lot harder than trying to create a sob story, if you like, that where you might have exaggerated certain elements to make them more emotional. It took me the best. I think Hung asked me to do it maybe 6 weeks ago before it was published, and it must have taken me 4 weeks to answer those questions, like going back and forth, battling with my mind in terms of, like say some of the questions in there is like, is my dad going to read this? What's my dad going to be like if he reads it, or something like that? And even though he knows everything that's in there, and we've probably spoken to other members of our families and friends to a one-on-one basis, it's different when you do put yourself out there. He was fine with it. He didn't care. He was like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I think it's a hard. I said it's a really hard exercise to do. Even some of the silly little questions, that in terms of being a giant monster or whatever and rampaging through a city, I still had to think about how to answer it, type thing. I think they were quite probing questions, I thought.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's sorry, Matt, I was just going to say, for me, I think it's quite there's a time and a place for those sorts of showing that emotional side to yourself. And I think particularly with those 20 questions, that's what people are expecting. People want you to be vulnerable, want you to show that personal element that they might not see somewhere else. But I think sometimes when people just put out a random post on LinkedIn that's completely out of the blue, I agree, Glenn, that's when it looks quite forced, and it's almost like, why are you suddenly talking about this now? Whereas that's almost a specific forum for that type of content, perhaps.
I think, like you said, Christina, when you're doing your predictions for 2021 and things, one thing that's that the past 9 or 10 months has shown us, and it's a word that's come up so much, is that empathy, isn't it? And empathetic marketing, that I think we all have to kind of take an element of, but like saying not take it too far, because every business has still got ultimately a product to sell, a service to sell, so that's still got to be the ultimate goal. But you can be a little bit more relatable, I think, to your customers, your clients, whatever you need, who you need to engage with.
Yeah, definitely.
I do think there is a bit though where people are just bloody nosy.
Oh yeah, well, you only have to look at the most popular TV programs, the reality shows, and everything. Because it's no surprise that they're the most popular stuff in the world, and YouTube channels are all of the most popular ones of vlogs, and where people are just getting on with their lives, isn't it? We're going back to that curiosity again, isn't it? Really, yeah.
So what are you seeing as being kind of a bit of something we should be watching out for next year?
Wow. I don't know, to be honest. I think if anything this year's taught me is that I'm giving up on making predictions and what we should do. I hope that there'll be a knock-on effect from a period of this year where people might have just planned stuff a little bit more. So whether that's like the technology that they're using, the way that they're communicating via email, means that they'll just use 2021 to really refine their approach to get that little bit more targeted in that sense. I don't see any will email automation take a step forward? I don't know, maybe. I'm not sure. I think the principles from a marketing point of view all still remain the same. I can't see anything like, wow, where's that come from? God knows how long we've been speaking about the same topics year after year for the past 10 years. In the recruitment world that we know, candidate experience, well, yeah, been banging on about that for God knows how long. But the very nature of it is that people's needs, their desires, their wants change year on year, and that's all about just being agile in your approach, really, isn't it? And not not sticking to anything.
Yeah, like for me, the agile thing is a really big theme. I also think that it's going to be the year of adoption. It's like is like the automation stuff, is it going to jump ahead again? Are we going to see those like massive leaps forwards in voice? Probably not.
No, because
no one's had the budgets to invest, or they've been trying to hold cash, so they haven't done the development necessarily to the level they would have done. But actually, and I don't think it's just recruitment, I think it's all sectors, people are just either back in sort of March, April time, they leapt in and they started using this stuff to be more efficient, or they didn't because maybe the budget wasn't there or what have you, and they're kind of kicking themselves. And next year it's going to be like, I really need to, I have to make that happen in 2021.
Yeah.
So I think
yeah.
usership will increase, but I don't see the tech moving forward. It's pretty advanced already.
Yeah, I think there's obviously been an acceleration in certain areas of of use of video, video tech and things like that. I suppose the big thing for any companies, looking forward into 2021, will be the employer branding piece. I can imagine that's going to take on a lot more importance for people when they're hiring, regardless of your industry, because probably for the next 5-6 years, until something else happens, or hopefully it won't, people will be talking about how companies responded during the pandemic. How did they treat their people, and companies have to really adapt to how they sell their business and their working environment in what's going to be a very different way of working, I think, for the next 18 months to 2 years in terms of working from home, because I think that that kind of horse has bolted now. I can't see many businesses being 5 days a week in an office, regardless of where they are.
So, Jane, I'm going to pick on you now because you've been very quiet. So when it comes to getting through all the reading each hour, and staying up on top of things, it's sort of Jane and I are kind of looking at quite a lot of stuff. So, Jane, what have you seen anything, or in terms of the updates and things, is there anything that you kind of think actually there's lots of stuff happening with at the minute, other than stories?
Now you said that, I don't know. There's only stories. Like I said, another one. I think that it's the shopping thing. Really, is the one I've just seen the most of. It was just like I said last week. I think it was, every platform is trying to get you to shop through them, and that's the one that every day there seems to be another story about someone else that wants you to shop through their platform. So I'm not sure whether I agree with it or not, though. But yeah, it's an interesting sort of trend. But that's kind of it, really, that I've noticed.
Can I ask a question on that then? So
No.
I was polite. So do you think now then, because everyone is trying to get us to shop through, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, wherever, there's way more competition for ad space? Because I was having a chat to somebody this morning who did an advertising campaign, paused it because of lockdown, started it again, and they're like, it's kind of just like stony silence out there. And the first time they put it out was, inundated to the point where they were like, can we turn it off? I can't cope with all the phone calls. So yeah, is that just because there's too much noise and there's too much jostling for space on the adverts, do you think? So that's kind of for Jane or Glenn or anyone.
Well, for me, I mean, yeah, what I've seen with the ads I've been running, and also on my own feed, it is full of adverts. But I think especially at the minute, everyone's sort of holding out a bit for Black Friday, for Cyber Monday. Certainly this last couple of weeks, it's like, well, I'm not buying anything now because I can get it cheaper next week, potentially. But yeah, I do think that, my whole feed is full of adverts all over the place, and there is a lot of competition.
Yeah.
Competition is mad right now. Your cost per action when you're looking at your Facebook ads or your LinkedIn ads, it's crazy. I think the stats I saw a couple of weeks ago, it was like LinkedIn advertising, like in-feed advertising on LinkedIn has increased like 40% since Q1. And it's crazy. And LinkedIn's expensive to advertise on anyway.
Well, and it's I find LinkedIn crazy, like the user experience to do paid for stuff's impossible. Right there.
Jane often rings me when we're doing LinkedIn ads, and she's like, "You're like Facebook." Expect someone to get so angry.
Yeah. Well, I've had moments. I remember I've done some work for a client in like the healthcare industry, and we put some money behind a post, set it live, set the budget. I went back like half an hour later, and the whole budget had gone. I was just like, "What's happened? What's happened there?" Like, I just didn't have a clue. Yeah, funny old platform.
Do you ever steer any of your recruitment clients towards doing paid ads on either Facebook or LinkedIn?
Not so much Facebook. Now and again on LinkedIn, but it has to be part of a much wider kind of strategy, and the budget needs to be there. You know, I see too many people, for example, on LinkedIn going straight for like a white paper, for example. It's like, oh look, here's a white paper, download, get all the leads, but you're promoting it to people who haven't got a clue who you are. And as much as LinkedIn's sales pitch, if you like, is to get you to spend as much money as possible, the theory behind what they're saying is actually accurate, where you have to allocate budget to kind of the awareness piece and to the credibility piece before you can start saying, you know, give me all your details. And too many people go, just give me all your details straight away, and you haven't got a clue. So,
sales funnel, isn't it?
it is, yeah. And that those basics are the same. So I tend not to be honest, and as it stands at the moment, again, this might be a 2021 prediction, Christina, is that if you can elevate and give the toolkit to the users and the individuals on LinkedIn, the reach there is still going to be more than enough. Next year after, you know, like every platform, I'm sure LinkedIn are going to squeeze and squeeze. I think it's already happening now. If you look at various posts on there, is they'll squeeze and squeeze and squeeze that organic reach to push people down the paid area, which would be fun. Yeah.
So we're almost at time. So just before we do close, just because you're a fellow marketer and I know into all the trends and that kind of stuff as well, are we going to see you on TikTok anytime soon?
Oh well, do you know what? I've had it downloaded. No. What's the point in dragging out an answer? No, not a chance. I'm getting wound up by, like Joe saying, the stories and everything like that. I go on Instagram and look at Instagram Reels, and they're just TikToks that have been forced into the ratio. But no, you know, it's a powerful tool though. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's a powerful tool, but I can't see myself on there. And thankfully, both of my kids are too young to drag me into any TikTok activity either.
So
yeah, there is. We're not ending the show on watch this space.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today, Glenn. Really appreciate it. Where do you want people to reach out to you?
As much as I've just blasted it for a couple of minutes there, I suppose LinkedIn. But yeah, I can be found on LinkedIn. You know, if you're interested in the, you know, if you're a marketer involved in recruitment, or just a marketer in general who takes an interest, you know, head over to thelonelymarketers.com. I suppose there's all the past episodes of podcasts that we've been speaking about there and things like that. But yeah, LinkedIn's the best place.
Excellent. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. And for people that have tuned in or are listening to this on the podcast or watching a replay, thank you. We will be live again next Thursday, 12 noon as usual. Because we've kind of got a bit mixed up with guests and what week's guests were happening, I think we've got another guest next week, haven't we, Amanda?
Yeah, so fabulous. Next week we have, continuing the theme of fabulousness, we have Joanne Lockwood joining us next week. So
excellent guest.
Yeah, so you'll know Jo. She was booked to come in a few weeks ago, but was taken poorly, but is fighting fit again now. So she'll be joining us next week, and we'll be having a strong conversation about diversity and inclusion.
Absolutely fantastic. Have an amazing week, everyone, and we will catch up with you next Thursday.
Bye.
Oh yeah, I nearly forgot about the photo. You have to like do it for ages, so Emily takes